Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all back at my channel. I continue to make some improvements to my hardware, and I hope this is going to be a better experience for you. I do have a very interesting sword to talk about, and lots of things with it. Without further ado, let's jump into it. We're going to talk about the sword made by the company called ShadowDancer, which is from China. And so the distributor they have, the main one in the US, is called Swordys. But you could buy swords on either of the websites. Um, I've bought the sword, Shinogi-Zukuri version of the ShadowDancer few months ago. Sorry it's dark, but what helps is the fact that the pictures on the website matched pretty much completely the final project. The tsuka was done just like on the picture. The tsuba was done just like shown on the picture. I will show you the blade as well, but let's talk about little details about the sword, and then I have some interesting background information. So when I bought it, it was a sword in an upper price bracket. It was more expensive than it is now. Now it's being sold for about $620, perhaps through shipping and taxes, I don't know. And they call the steel S7. When I bought the same design, it was called S5. And that's a kind of a part of the mystery that we will talk more about. I have a variety of katana replicas from different forges. So I do have a good eye for them. I'm not Matthew Jensen, but I'm learning. And when I look at the sword, I always start with the tsuka. The tsuka is done great. The shape is kind of a slightly bent hourglass shape, is very comfortable. The Samigawa panels are done in such a way that you can tell that it's not a full wrap, which is rare for replicas, even more expensive ones. Um, the the knot by the kashira, the very end piece here, is done great, very symmetric on each side, and it doesn't give. Like I try to press on it and nothing happens. Um, the ito, the silk wrapping around the tsuka, the handle, is done very well. And there was definitely hishigami done as well, which made those folds of silk kind of stand out more, providing slightly better traction. For me, tsuka is one of the most important parts of the sword because this is the interface I have with the sword. If the handle is terrible, I cannot do with the sword what I could have done having a good interface. So having a nice made tsuka is definitely a very big plus in a replica. It's something you would really appreciate practicing Yaido, or the tameshigiri, backyard cutting, what have you. Let's look at the parts of the tsuka, all of the fittings here. They seem to be made from brass, the top kashira portion. It shows bamboo leaves. The minuki, it's a little design made of metal that, that is present on each side of the tsuka. Um, it also has a meaning beyond just the symbolism of the image. It helps you to grip the sword right, know where things are, have a slight little bulge. it's important mechanically, and it's important stylistically. And it also features a plant bamboo leaves type pattern. Um, the Fuji ring that is right before the brass spacer SEPA and the tsuba, the handguard, is done from brass. It's not exactly super thick, but it's fairly thick. It's not paper thin. And it fits the handle very well. The transitions on both sides are perfect. There's no way to say it. The mikugi pegs, the little bamboo pegs that go inside the tsuka and hold the whole construction together, um, this sort of stands out. I'm not sure if it's something that ShadowDancer do with all of their swords or just some of their swords. Uh, it's a classic way to hold the tsuka with a single um, mikugi peg. And also, this mikugi peg is at a little angle, which makes it a little bit stronger at holding those pieces. And of course, you have the silk wrap. Um, I practiced Iaido with the sword, and nothing. I did not damage anything. The ito did not start to frail. I didn't have to apply any textile glue onto the knots towards Kashira. Um, I did apply a few drops of gun oil onto the samigawa. Samigawa is usually a bit dry, and I know it's not the traditional way of caring for the sword, but the Japanese katana were indeed uh, oiled in certain places, um, like the wooden core would be treated for maximum flexibility and strength to absorb the kinetic impact. And by oiling samigawa, eventually some of the oil gets inside the wooden core. If you use brown gun oil, it will also color the samigawa from white to slightly brownish color, and some people like it. It gives it more of an antique look. I did not get that far. I basically done a series of oiling, let it dry, soak up, and I left it the way it is. So it kind of very much matches the pictures on the website, even though I know the camera and lighting are not the best here. But it's not really about that, because in this particular sword, often it matches the description in terms of the looks very well. Sometimes when you order a sword and you look at the pictures online, and what you get has some issues, like the Fuji ring doesn't look quite as nice as on the website. The Kashira doesn't look quite as well. The knots are not done quite as well. But this is almost a photographic copy of what you see on the website, which is very rare. The saya, it's very interesting in the way that, well, it's green and it doesn't come up very often. It's a bit pearly. Um, it's not exactly resilient to impacts, so I would be very careful with it. If it like falls from, let's say, a stand onto the table, it will likely leave a dent in the finish. And so far, the only real solution I found to fix those dents, or at least make them better, is to use a bit of clear nail lacquer. Um, it's just the saya for katana uh, that are available online to buy, that are not extraordinarily expensive, are made to look nice. They will lock the sword in well, but they're not quite very strong. They dent easily. That's just a common thing. Um, so it's not something that the sword has as a special kind of a feature, not bug more than so. It's just something that is shared among most swords. you could buy, most katana replicas you could buy. I will show you the blade and the habaki. Habaki is the sword collar. It's made from brass. Um, the blade sits in the habaki very well on each side, very symmetric, very nice. There are no motifs or engravings or pictures. I like the plain habaki look. The seppa, the spacers between the tsuba and the habaki and the fuchi ring are irregular brass spacers. Uh, the finish, it's mirror polish, which is not historically accurate, but it looks very nice. Um, it's done well. This particular sword does not have yokote, so what that means, and I'll try to show it to you. Here, it's almost there. There is no separation within the kisaki, within this portion that curves. Sometimes there is a yokote, which kind of geometrically separates the sharp curve with the rest of the body of the blade, and some geometries like Shinogi-Zukuri or Shobu-Zukuri, I'm sorry, they don't have it by design. Um, Arguably, this is better for cutting. It's more of a smooth transition, and the sword itself is quite light. Like, I held Shashka replicas that were heavier than this, so this could be used with one hand fairly easy. It's a light sword, and it really much aligns with the Edo sword's philosophy, because during the peaceful Edo period, people did not really wear heavy samurai armor, but the danger was always there. Assassinations were on the rise. People sometimes would be jumped in a dark alley on the way home, or attacked by an assassin in a tea house. So it made sense for people that wear silk to carry swords that are a little bit lighter, a little bit faster. That split second difference could mean the difference between death and life. So this is typical for Edo swords. The tsuba is another kind of a mysterious part. I couldn't find a copy in the catalogs. I looked at the catalogs, at least available online, of Japanese tsuba from Edo period, and it's not a copy of any of them. It does have that organic look, perhaps a tree branch, maybe a wing of a crow. It's a bit open to interpretation, and I like that. I like that it's a unique tsuba. It's a light tsuba, but the way it's made, the round outer shell shape is supported quite well by the rest of the design, so it would probably stop a sword. It's not something like a heavy techi tsuba. It's a light tsuba that's meant to show art, and it's also meant to be just good enough for its purposes without increasing the weight of the sword. Now, the interesting part, when I bought the sword, it was marketed as S5 sword, S5 steel, S5 super steel sword. That was the main reason why I decided to buy it. Then a video came out by Matthew Jensen, who had another sword by ShadowDancer that he has tested, and he sent the steel to a lab, actual metallurgical lab that applies scientific methods to looking at the steel, And that S5 blade was more like 1080. And it also did not quite have the best heat treatment. It wasn't a spring temper. Perhaps it was a combination of something, a mystery, really, how that blade was heat treated. Uh, it did okay for light cutting, and then when things got a bit more intense, the edge rolled, and eventually the blade snapped. So now the same sword with the same looks is being sold for like $100, $150, maybe $200 less, and advertised as S7, which is also supposed to be a super steal, just a nudge before S5. I would take it with a big grain of salt. Um, if you look at my Substack, I have an article about I don't know how to call it, this development in the industry where ShadowDancer have sent me an email when I questioned whether my sword is S5 or it's something else. And in that email, they have stated some specific information, which later was deleted from lots of YouTube videos and replaced with the official reply by Swordies. Um, I'm not going to go into a lot of the details of the drama. You can find on my Substack the article that explains exactly what was the original statement by ShadowDancer. Um, you can read it for yourself and make your own mind, but I would not expect the sword to be an S7. Um, I think it will be a very nice, well put together sword, a great sword for Yaido if you're looking for a light sword. Though I would suggest you to um, get a heavier, longer sword for Yaido practices, just to train your muscles better, to have additional challenge to overcome. Light swords, I don't want to call them cheating. They have their space and they have their reason to exist. But in terms of training, um, I would consider getting something a little bit heavier. If you are cutter, single tatami mat will be fine, especially if your technique is good. If your technique is not so great, I would not put too much faith into the heat treatment of the sword. Even if it's a 1080, it doesn't necessarily mean that higher carbon will make the steel better, because the heat treatment part is quite complicated. I have a friend who used to be a master blacksmith at a famous company here in the US, Albion Swords, with the headquarters and the only facility in little touristy town, New Glarus, Wisconsin. And we spoke at length about the heat treatment. And to heat treat a sword made from S5 or S7 requires lots of discipline. It requires a very measured scientific approach to this, and it's basically hard to do. LongQuan, and now this comes more from my conversation with one of the owners of one of the more popular forges within LongQuan these days. Both people didn't want me to really name them, but I guarantee you that this is subjective information which I heard from them. So the owner of the forge stated that super steels are out there in China. They're very expensive. Most forges don't even think about buying them. Um, they used to be they used to work with 1060, 1055, 1045. Then they got good at 1095, then T10 came across, and by the way, S5 is supposed to be 10 times more impact resistant than T10, and T10 is 1% carbon, high carbon steel, with the addition of tungsten. So it's a tungsten steel alloy. T10 is one of the most popular higher end blades, usually through hardened, made for a very resilient and strong edge, but susceptible to bending. They're not spring tempered. I'm not sure if you could spring temper T10. That's something I cannot comment on. I know you could spring temper 1060, and Ronin Katana used to produce swords made from 1060, which was, it still is a fairly simple higher carbon steel, but they would actually do very good heat treatment to the steel. So if you watched a lot of Matthew's videos, destruction videos, that 1060 lasted longer than some of the swords 2-3 times the price, because they've made a good spring temper and the edge was not rolling, and it kept being sharp, and it cut through a variety of objects, and it withstood the stick of doom, basically a steel rebar concrete thingy that sticks out from a piece of concrete. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you can market your sword with any type of steel you want, but as somebody who is a customer who is buying a sword online, uh, just think that the steel advertised, especially if it's some super steel, rare steel, L6 benite, even Hanwei, when they released the first L6 benite swords, it's like benite crystals that formed during the heat treatment, and they found issues. It wasn't very well done. I don't know if it has changed with Hanwei or not, but I would not buy L6 from any Chinese vendor. I would not buy L6 at all, because 90% of 99% it's going to be probably a different steel or poorly heat treated um, L6 type steel. If you stick with something known that Forges has worked with for a long time, like anything from 1045 up to 1095, spring steels like 5160, 9260 is a great steel, and T10, you're more likely to actually get the sword with that type of steel, because they are easier to get and people know how to work them. Um, the, the sword masters or swordsmiths that work on those projects, they are familiar with those types of steel. When you start looking at more cutting edge or super steels, if you want to call them, or just expect that you may not get what you pay for. For $600, is this worth it? I mean, it's a great display piece for sure. I don't know how it's gonna cut. It's a mystery steel, and there's a reason why I called it the mystery of nature, because yes, it does portray the natural theme, and nature comes with lots of mysteries. We still don't know most of the things about nature in the world at this time, even with our high-tech gear. But the mystery also lies in the blade. It looks nice. I don't know how it performs. Great display piece. Nice Sageo, well tied, feels good. But would I trust this S7 supposedly? Or, well, it used to be called S5, now it's called S7. Is it really S7? Is it 1085? Is it something else? We don't know. So, my personal trust in ShadowDancer is very low now. This sword, by the way, was reimbursed to me at the full price I paid for it. I wrote a complaint letter mentioning the Trade Bureau of the Communist Party of China. And honestly, I didn't know where it's gonna go. I was hoping they would just let me return it and give me a shipping label, but they have refunded me the entire sword. Um, so that makes it also special, and it's also a bit of a mystery why they have decided to do so. Again, if you want to read the original statement by them, which was basically purged from everywhere, besides maybe a forgotten Reddit subreddit, um, check my Substack. I will include a link to my article uh, for you to read. I think it's very interesting and it touches upon an important point about buying replicas. How much can we really trust the names of steals, especially in the higher end swords that cost hundreds upon hundreds of dollars? There are some companies that have a very good reputation for the steels that they use and how they work with them, like Hunt and Forge, for example. Um, they don't do everything perfect. The handles sometimes look a bit axy, like such as a bit thick. But you can request a Rico shape or hourglass shape, and they will try to do something like that. Um, Full Samigawa wrap is also possible with certain forges. Romance of Man has done an amazing job with the full Samigawa wrap for actually a very inexpensive daisho. That is something which I really like. Um, they have uh, created the wooden core a little bit thinner to accommodate for the thickness of Samigawa's full wrap. So it did not feel thick, it felt good, it was shaped well. Um, it was one of their Tsubohi extra sharp um, spring steel uh, swords, both the Wakizashi and the Katana replica, which I really liked. My first daisho set from Romance of Men was a bit funky, like no real big issues. It's just there were some interesting elements about it, and I might make a video about it later on. Um, but the second set from them, all blacked out, simple iron fittings, spring steel, double bohi. That's still one of my most favorite budget swords that I own. Um, the Ito is great. I know that that's the spring steel as advertised. I spoke with certain people in this industry. Um, so don't spend too much money because you might get burnt, friends. If you have any questions for me about anything whatsoever, please use the comments section. Um, if you would like to see more interesting content related to swords, history, modern replicas, developments in the industry, and so forth and so on, please subscribe. If you want me to improve something about the production, please let me know. All videos are done in one take. Usually it's a first take. I don't use AI to create me a script or a structure. I only use AI for thumbnails. And I do it on purpose. I'm no Lindsay Page. I know that, but I kind of like that feel. It's almost like you're presenting in front of the class or a professor talking about the subject. And by that, I honor my own personal history professors I had. Um, is this Shinobi-Zukuri, I mean, Shinogi-Zukuri, I apologize, a nice looking sword? Yes. Is it well built? Tsuka-wise, Kabaki, Tsuba? Yes, it is. Is Saya shiny and looking nice? Yes. Is it like impact resistant Saya? No, it's not. It will bend like any other Saya from $100 sword Saya than just like this one. They didn't really do anything special with it besides making it look very nice. It's a great display piece without a question. For Yaido, it might be a good sword, but for $600, you have a lot of options. Even if you're looking for a sword just to do Yaido with. So do your research. Always read reviews. Um, Reddit has a subreddit katanas with an S at the end, and that's the place I would go for news if something happens with the brand or if there is something that people complain about. It usually comes up there first. Um, SBG forums are also great, but make sure you read the newer posts because, for example, I heard that Ronin Katana with its Dojo Pro series that used to be always suggested to newcomers into the Japanese swordsmanship as a safe choice. I've heard that it's not quite as good as it used to be and it has uh, too many issues. Personally, I was lucky enough to get some dent and scratch swords from Ronin Katana, and they were done well. Some of them did not even have a dent or a scratch, um, but things have changed. Things change all the time. And now we also have the tariffs situation, which may mean that some forges may try to cut corners. Um, the shipping may increase, but the quality may remain. I don't know. We'll hope so. Just keep your ears open and do your research. I don't trust whatever the more expensive steel the forge advertises, the more suspect that is. Even if they use that steel, what are they using? Pre-made industrial stock, just shaped into a sword, but how it was heat treated. Is it the heat treatment appropriate for a sword, or it's a heat treatment more appropriate for a mold? Um, so with swords, you have to have specific heat treatment to bring the best the steel has to offer within the application of what sword is supposed to do. So heat treatment is just as important as the steel it's made from. Um, Lower grade steels treated well will probably not probably they will outperform higher end steels. If T10 is not treated as well as 1095, it will break before 1095 does, basically, or even 1060. Um, Trust is hard to earn, and with budget swords, budget replicas, there's always an element of lottery involved. You may get lucky, you may get burned. Certain forges have good customer service and return policy, and that's something I would always look into. If you look for a forge, make sure you speak with the customer service and confirm all of the policies. And even then, you're dealing with a company in a different country. Sometimes they overpromise, underdeliver. Sometimes they overpromise um, and overdeliver too. Like I had some great experience with LK in the past, but I also had some not so great experience with LK in the past. I had some terrible experience with Sinosword, but then I had some really good experience with Sinosword. So it all just depends. That's the game of sword collecting. Um, of course, if you can afford a real katana from Japan, that would be just fantastic. But lots of people, including myself, we cannot afford buying something like that. So we look for alternatives. Um, the three of my favorite pieces, my favorite swords, is Ronin 47, Swedish powder steel, folded, beautifully made, just like in the pictures. If you look at picture books of katana, the hada is almost just the same. Beautiful shapes, very well made sword, expensive, but that's kind of my holy grail. And I love the length, the balance, everything about it, the tsuba. Um, then I also like Tatsu by LK Chen. It's a bit lighter. Um, there is no bohi, but it's still a great sword, and I kind of like that it doesn't have bohi. It has unique hamon. The heat treatment of the edge leaves that special um, design or that special look that stands out from the polish, um, almost like an ornament. And if you are into Japanese swords, you know that there are like hundreds of different types of hamon, and most that you will see are just wavy patterns. And LK Chen with Tatsu created hamon that is more interesting, and I liked it. And they actually offered me pictures of two different blades and asked me which one I like more. Like no other forge ever has done something like this. I paid extra for the full Samigawa wrap, and they have not made the handle too thick. So the end result, the Tatsu that I have received, is in my top 5 for sure. I had great success with Kanban Forge. I have created a sword that kind of hails the legacy of Musashi, um, based on the remaining samples in the museum, and his writings in uh, the Kodo and the Book of Five Rings. And I really like that sword. It's a real battle sword with a thick spine, uh, great looking hamon, made from T10, not folding. It's practical, it's beautiful, but it doesn't have any of that silver or golden paint on it. Someday I will show it to you. Um, so that those are probably my top 3. The Yelki Tatsu, my latest collaboration with Hanban Forge, um, the sword I call Sophia, but it's also Musashi sword, and the 47 Ronin by Hanwei. It really is something special. Um, but going back to our beloved Mystery Steel, $600, ShadowDancer. You know, if I have a good suspicion that the whoever's selling it is lying about any aspect of it, no matter how much they charge or how well it's made, that matters to me. Okay, and I'm just gonna leave it there. Am I happy I have this sword now? Yes, but I got a full refund. If they would have sent me a return label, I would have sent it out and got my money back because it wasn't S5 as advertised. Is it S7? Is it 1085? Is it 1060? How well it was heat treated? It was polished great in the mirror polish, but mirror polish is not a historical polish. Does it convey the spirit of lighter Edo period swords? Yes, it does. It's light and it's fast. It's sharp. Um, so those are the things I can tell you. Um, so some objectivity, a bit of mystery, and a lot of other information related to the sword market, especially the Katana replicas. Sorry, I made this a bit longer than I was planning to. I have no idea what's going to be next, but do check my Substack. I write poetry, I write essays on philosophy, I write essays about swords, I write essays about guns, I write essays about vaping devices. I really have lots of interest, and I try to express my desire to share with the world um, my thoughts using that site. I do all of the editing myself. I spend hours writing those long format essays and then editing them. I know there's AI now that can do that for me, but I'm a 20th century person who enjoys doing the work by myself. I don't want any shortcuts. If I'm a bad writer and I make mistakes, so be it. I own those mistakes, and you're welcome to criticize me for them. If somebody else is a writer that makes mistakes, I respect that. We're humans, we make mistakes. What I don't respect is when manufacturers or sellers or distributors or whoever else lie to the customers. That's something I don't respect. All right. On this note, have a wonderful day. Thank you for sticking with me, and I just love seeing that people check my videos and visit my channel. Um, it's a great outlet for me because nobody else at home wants to listen to me talk about swords for this long. So anyhow, take care. Have a great time of day. It was a pleasure. Bye bye.